What's up, y'all? You already know who it is, your boy JP the Install Guy, and today we're going to go over this Pac RP4-CH11 wire harness. I'm going to show you guys how to wire this thing up. Well, I'm actually going to show you what all these wires mean and some do's and don'ts and things that you should know about your Pac RP4-CH11. These are the type of things that you're into. Please consider subscribing because this is what we do. Audio install related, that's what the channel is about. And from time to time, I like to share my car audio knowledge, so whether you're a beginner or advanced, this channel just might be for you. So if you guys have a newer model Jeep, Chrysler, or Dodge, and you want to change out your radio, 9 times out of 10, you are going to use this harness. So what comes inside the pack is going to be this little blue box. You're also going to get a plug right here. This is going to be for your steering wheel controls, and then you're going to get 2 separate harnesses because depending on what type of vehicle you have, you may use one or the other. I will say that 9 times out of 10, you are probably going to be using this one, so either way you can just kind of chunk that one because you're not going to need it. It is also going to come with some instructions for you guys, but I'm actually going to go over a lot of stuff that this actually says, and I'm only going to refer back to it maybe once or twice. So first things first, why is this harness so expensive? Well, this harness actually does a lot, and when you take your factory radio out, you're going to lose a lot. So this thing actually helps you retain the majority of that stuff. The radio that's inside your Jeep, Chrysler, or Dodge, if you need this harness, is probably a data bus radio, and what that basically means is that it does not turn on when the key turns on from an ignition wire. It actually gets a data signal from the CAN bus system inside the car. So as you can see on these wire harnesses, there is no red wire on the actual harness. The red wire is the ignition wire, or it represents the ignition wire, and what that does is it turns on your radio. What this thing has to do, this part has to plug in right here. We're not going to take the tape off, but that has to plug in right here. So once it sees the data signal, it will go in, and then you have your power and your ground wire that go into this little thing right here, and then it's going to output a 12-volt wire to go to your aftermarket radio. Also, this thing will retain your steering wheel controls. So when you take your factory radio out, you will be losing your steering wheel controls. This automatically retains it. Now, some people may be saying, hey, my car is basic and I don't have steering wheel controls. At the end of the day, you're still going to need it for the CAN bus system. So whether or not you have steering wheel controls, this thing is going to retain them. But if you don't have them, of course, you're still going to need the harness. This also retains your RAP, which stands for retained accessory power. Put the car in park and you turn the key and take the key out of the ignition. Your factory radio sometimes will still be on until you open up the door. This actually retains that same retained accessory power, so your aftermarket radio does the exact same thing. Now, programming those steering wheel controls is extremely easy with this Pac harness. All you want to do is you want to take this, and then if you come to the side, you will see that this Pac harness has a little dial on the side, and it goes from 0 to 9. Over here in the actual instructions, these are the numbers that are going to represent what type of radio that we actually have, and that's going to determine what number we need to actually turn that dial to. So if we had a Sony radio that we were installing inside of our Jeep, Chrysler, or Dodge, we would take a little flathead screwdriver and we will twist that thing to number 8, and then we're automatically programmed. Now over here on the steering wheel control side, you're going to have a blue wire with the yellow stripe and then a 3.5mm jack. If you have a radio like an Alpine, a Clarion, a Pioneer, Sony, something like that, 9 times out of 10, those are going to take the 3.5mm jack. If you have a Kenwood or a JVC or something like that, then you're going to have a steering wheel control wire on the back of your radio, not a steering wheel control port. So you're going to need to hook this blue with the yellow stripe up to your newer model JVC and Kenwood radios. Your vehicle speed sense, illumination, reverse trigger, and parking brake should all be retained with this. And if I can be honest, about 98% of the time when I'm installing this and I'm hooking up a backup camera and trying to hook up the parking brake, I always get the parking brake signal and the reverse signal from using this harness. So I can actually vouch that for the majority of the vehicles, especially the newer model ones that read the CAN data, it will be able to do that for you. And a good way to find out if yours is going to be reading that CAN data or not, you see these two pink wires. There's a pink and there's a pink with a black stripe. Those are going to be your high CAN, low CAN wires. So if you're looking inside the harness as far as plugging it in to your factory harness, look where these two are pinned and look on the other side and see if it's pinned over there. If it is pinned, then those last couple wires that I was talking about have a really good chance of being retained with this module. So now that we've talked about what this thing will retain, let's go ahead and go over the wiring, and then we'll get into some troubleshooting type stuff. So if you guys want a little bit more in-depth version of how to wire up a CD player, I will be linking that video in the description, but I'm going to give you a brief description on this stuff right now. So you do have a solid yellow that's going to be your 12-volt constant. This is just going to read 12 volts whether the car is on or off. Yes, there is two of them. You would just twist those two together. The blacks are going to be ground. You do the same thing with that because some of these have two. You just twist those together as well. The red is the solid red is going to be your ignition. This reads 12 volts with the car on, 0 volts with the car off. So that's what's actually going to turn your radio on. Next, you're going to have your speaker wires. Now you're going to have 8 speaker wires. If I can, god doggone, get them. Hold on. All right, next you're gonna have 8 speaker wires. We're gonna have 2 whites, 2 grays, 2 greens, and 2 purples. If you look, you're gonna see one with a solid, that's gonna be a solid color, and then you're also gonna have one that's gonna have a solid color with a black stripe. The solid color is gonna be positive in this scenario. The one with the black stripe is gonna be negative. So the 2 whites are gonna be your driver front speaker. Solid white's positive, white with the black stripe is negative. The 2 grays are going to be your passenger front speaker. Same thing applies with the solid and the black stripe. The 2 greens are going to be your driver rear speaker, and the 2 purples are going to be your passenger rear speaker. All of these are going to be your speaker wires. This orange with the white stripe is going to be your illumination. What that does is if you hook this up to your radio, if it has an illumination or dimmer wire, when you actually dim your lights inside the car, it will dim the radio. Now here we have 2 wires that look the same. You have a solid blue and then you have a blue with the white stripe. The solid blue is going to be for power antenna. If you have an antenna that goes up and down when you turn the car on, this is going to be the output for that. And if you don't have one that goes up or down, this will be something kind of like a booster to help boost that signal. The blue with the white stripe is going to be a amplifier turn on. So if you have a factory amp inside the car, this is what needs to be hooked up in order for you to get sound. Now with these wires over here, you're going to see that it actually says navigation outputs, because this is where you're going to have your park and brake, which is going to be the red with the white. You're going to have a solid green, which is going to be reverse, and then you're going to have a purple with the white stripe, which is going to be your vehicle speed sense. One way that you can know that your steering wheel controls are working is that if you hook this up, somewhere on here, there's going to be a red LED on the inside that you'll be able to see once you press it. If you press it and that red LED starts flashing, then you know that it's actually seeing the signal from the car. And if it's not doing anything on the radio, then you know that one of these two are not hooked up. Now, let's just say that you are hitting those steering wheel controls, but the volume up is actually changing the channel, or the volume down is doing volume up, or your source button is turning on the Bluetooth, or whatever the case is, then there could be a couple problems that's going on. Maybe your steering wheel controls, the clock spring in it is kind of worn down, so it's giving off a different resistance value, and in that case you may have to remap your steering wheel controls, and you would do that with this remapping button on the side. Now there are some instructions inside the manual showing you guys how to do it. But what you would do if you need to remap your steering wheel controls is that you'll put the key into the ignition and you'll turn the car on. Then you want to go ahead and press that programming button. After you press it, within the next 7 seconds, then we want to actually start learning our steering wheel controls. So basically, let's say that we have a Sony radio. After we've pressed this, within the next 7 seconds, I want to press volume up, volume down, mute, preset up, preset down, source, and all that type of stuff. And once you do that, all you want to do is actually let it sit for another 7 seconds. This thing will flash again, and then you'll be able to test and make sure that everything has take like it's supposed to. Now let's just say that on the steering wheel controls that you don't have the mute button. Then what you would do is you would actually press that programming button to skip it, which is very important on why you have to go to a T which radio you have in order to map. So let's say we have the Sony and we don't have a mute button. I'm gonna show you what that looks like. Stick the key in, turn the ignition, press it once. Within 7 seconds, I'm gonna press volume up, volume down on my steering wheel controls, and then I'm gonna press this to skip the mute button. Then I'm gonna do preset up, preset down, and source. And let's just say that that's all I have. I'm gonna leave everything alone, and then after another 7 seconds, my things are gonna be programmed, and then I'll go back and check. Now this video is getting kind of long, but I want to give you guys some nice information about this wire harness because I do give a lot of questions about it. If you guys haven't learned anything, then please hit that like button. But this last thing that I'll tell you before we go away is in order to figure out whether you have an amplified system inside your vehicle or not, is going to be check your factory size speaker wires. So what I'm saying is take the radio out, take this, plug it in. If you plug it in, you see where these 2 whites and 2 grays are, and you see where the 2 greens and the 2 purples are. They're always going to be grouped together on this harness in the same area. So if we look on the factory side and we see 8 speaker wires, then your car is not factory amplified because this is going directly to there. If you look on the factory side and you only see 4 speaker wires, which for the most part they're going to be the rears on the bottom part of the harness, then that means that this thing has a rear signal that's going to a factory amp, and then that's going to output power towards all the speakers. It's very important to know that because if you have a factory amp inside the vehicle, for one, if you hook the whites to, if you hooked everything up as far as like matching all the colors, it will still play. The only thing is that when it comes to talking with your Bluetooth, you may not be able to hear them because your Bluetooth 9 times out of 10 comes off the front speakers. But if you have a factory amplifier, there are no front speakers over there. So now what we have to do is we have to hook up our rear speakers from our harness to our front speakers on the aftermarket CD player. And I think I actually did a video on that when it came to like troubleshooting some Bluetooth. I'll actually link that stuff for you guys, or a card should be popping up here in the corner. That way we can kind of keep this short, sweet, straight to the point. And if you need more in-depth videos, you can guys just hit those. All right, guys, so that's going to be it about this Pac harness. I hope you've learned something. If you did find any value in this video, please hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe, share, comment if you want to. I will have product links in the description on this Pac RP4-CH11. And don't forget that if you guys want to be a furthermore supporter, that Patreon link will also be in the description, where I give those guys behind the scenes footage. My one-on-one help, teaching, and coaching will be done within the Patreon. And if you need any type of wire diagram, whether it's for a backup camera, steering wheel controls, or you're trying to hook up that CD player, I get that stuff to you too. So without further ado, man, this your boy JP signing out. I hope everybody have a blessed day. Peace.